All right. What's up, guys? Welcome into Good Morning Lambo. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on Packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. Email us, PackersTotalAccess@gmail.com. You can text us 865-658-5824. Flying solo as of the moment. Tim may be in here in a minute. I thought Jacob was going to be on. I guess he's running a little bit behind as well. But we may be flying solo the entire day, man. That's what you get with this crappy program sometimes. So hopefully everybody's having an awesome morning as the big news is obviously the Detroit Lions dropping one to the Commanders here in the playoffs. All of that talk the Lions did all year long just for it to be a SOL. Same old Lions, right? And great regular season, obviously, however many games they won. What was it, 15? I think they had 15 wins. And it'd be different if they were kind of knew their place, right? Like, you've never won anything. You've never won a championship. You haven't had a consistently competitive team forever. I mean, probably for the entire history of your franchise. You've never been considered like, yep, the Lions are always in it. And you finally turn that corner and you're starting to get there. And the fans just went off the rails this year, right? Pretending like they've just hung the moon in the National Football League. You know, I shared a video on Twitter of a specific Lions fan that, I won't mention his name on here, but just the embodiment of a fan that's just a loudmouth, right? Like when you see the fan, what happened in Philly, right, with Baz going up there and everything, and it's just all they do is talk, and when you talk that much, you don't really step back and think about what you're saying. And to call the Packers a poverty franchise like you did this year, and then to say that you're going to find out that you're not real fans. The Lions have been real fans all along. And, of course, I pulled the receipts on that and said, hold up a minute, bub. The first year that Dan Campbell was your head coach, you were dead last in the National Football League in attendance. Okay? So this is with Dan Campbell as the head coach. The entire year you finished dead last in attendance. And because you've had a little bit of success, you're going to now get on social media, call the Packers a poverty franchise, say their fans aren't real, and then all of a sudden pretend like you guys haven't been the fairest of fair weather fans in the history of the game. So I'll throw that little receipt out there. And now to have them completely crap the bed in the biggest game of the season where their quarterback throws 3 interceptions, right? I mean, just completely choked, a complete choke artist. Maybe you need to back up just a touch and go, okay, yeah, we probably need to know our place here. Let's wait till we win something. And in their defense, there were a few Lions fans last night listening to a postgame show, which I'm just telling you was manna from heaven. Listen to that postgame show. There was a few calling in like, guys, we really got to curb it here. Like, we haven't done anything yet. We're running around like we've won Super Bowls. And one specifically said on the postgame show, we keep calling the Packers a poverty franchise when they're one of the iconic franchises in the entire league, right? So it was just like the chat's saying, man, it was absolutely glorious. Absolutely glorious. We got Jacob joining us now. Jacob, how you doing, big dog?
I'm freezing my nerds off, man.
What's the temperature up there right now? Tell everybody.
It is without the wind chill right now. It is currently -10. With the wind chill, it is around -24.
That's crazy, man. Crazy. I think we're supposed to get in the negatives down here this week, and it's supposed to be like a pretty cold spell, but nothing like that, man. I told the story when I left Lodge Kohler 2 Decembers ago to catch a 6 a.m. flight back home. I walked out of that Lodge Kohler to load my luggage into the shuttle, and the air hitting my quads, I guess you could say, the front of my legs, it was like instantly somebody put 2 lighters on it. Like it was just on fire. It was unbelievable cold. Unbelievable cold. So anyway, we were just sitting here talking a little bit about the Lions game. That's probably going to be the theme this morning as everybody, it's like, it sucks, the Packers get eliminated, and we've talked about all the reasons why and how it could have gone different, but why it was more probable than not that it would happen the way it did. Boy, oh boy, watching the Lions just get their ass kicked last night was something special. It really was, man. So anyway, let's go. We got a super chat here. I want to address this real quick, guys. Part of me doesn't want to put it on the screen, but the other part, I don't want to silence people who are willing to donate to the show too. So I'm going to do my best. I just ask for a little grace here as I tread these waters for this super chat. And hopefully I do a good enough job explaining my stance here. All right. I'm going to read it for what it is. Josh Martin with the super chat says the Lions lose, Trump getting inaugurated, TikTok gets banned, so paid liberals on there have to get a real job now. Great day to be an American. All right, so there's probably a lot of people in our chat that completely agree with that. Jacob's laughing, right? So I just want to say this, man. The reason I almost didn't put it on the screen, Josh, and I appreciate the dono, man, and everything. I want to be a unifier. Like, I'm so damn tired of our country being divided, you know? Now, the whole TikTok thing, let me give you my stance on it real quick. I've got a close friend who's been doing TikTok content as a construction worker for the last 5 years, built up an awesome base, got a really, just, you know what I mean, Jacob, like kind of that, hey, here's how you do the handyman stuff on the side. And it just took off. He's just one of the best human beings ever.
A lot of TikTok is great. It's actually very informational. The problem is obviously there's certain, kinks, whatever. I'll let you go on it. It just.
Yeah. But he's been saying, Clayton, man, you're missing out. You need to get on TikTok. Get on TikTok. I'm like, well, I'm kind of settling in on YouTube, and we had our bumps there, right, Jacob? We all year long last year. I'm a real big fan of X because there's no, you're not really preventing people from saying what they want to say, but at the same time, here's the beautiful thing: somebody says something stupid, you can block them, and I do it all the time, right? So you can control what you want to see there, right? But anyway, I was hesitant. I'm like, man, I keep hearing, positive and negative things about it. I'm a little nervous about it. I'm just going to hold off. And then, of course, it gets banned. Well, now guess what he's doing? He's trying to build up his entire base now, YouTube X. And I know Donald Trump, you're going to be the president here in a couple of days. He said that he's going to, I think they put a 90-day hold on that, and they're going to try to save TikTok is what I'm understanding. So anyway, this is a Packer show. That's the reason I was hesitant on hitting this, but I don't want to ignore the fact that Josh did a super chat. I just want you to know I was raised pretty poor, and to a certain extent of my life, when I got to about 13 years old, our family started to cut the corner a little bit, right? Democrats all the way. So please don't think this is just a diehard Republican. I hate politics. I hate both parties. Cannot stand them, right? Because when push comes to shove, you don't look to a politician to help you, right? You look to your neighbor. You look to your family member. That's where we go. When we're down and out, we look for those people we can lean on. And I think those politicians are all playing us like pawns. I really do.
I think, dude, the older I get, the more I realize there's two parties. It's us versus them, because both Democrats and Republicans, they're screwing you over, and they look you in the eye while they do it, that's what's more infuriating for me. But anyways, Packers.
Yeah. So again, I just want to say, Josh, thank you for the super chat. All right. We probably agree on more than we disagree on. I'll say that. But I want to keep it Packers Center. I want this show to be kind of a way to unplug. Now, we're going to say funny stuff. We're going to have the sound bites. We'll have Trump sound bites. We'll have Biden sound bites. God knows we'll have Biden sound bites. Boy, he gave us about 1,001 this last 4 years. But we want to keep it Packers. And again, thank you for the super chat. I want anyone who's hearing my voice to go, well, I don't like that you read that. Okay, I'm sorry you feel that way, but I do want you to know you're welcome here. All right. There's room for common ground on both sides, and we can all come together. That's what I hope we do. And that's all I got. Probably a piss poor way of handling that super chat, but I'm a piss poor human being most of the time. So there you go. Thank you for the super chat, Josh. Appreciate you. Let's see here. Matthew Love, new member. Appreciate you becoming a member on the channel, buddy. You are awesome. Thanks for supporting us. Raider McCready said, I like Ryan's idea for officiating. You have the eye in the sky, people watching from that eye in the sky, and you have just a few refs on the field whose only job is to call in what's called down. Jacob, that sounds like a perfect plan, but as Matthew Love says here, this is the problem with that, right? Yeah, but why would the NFL want to do that when you keep fans engaged talking about how bad the officiating is? The NFL knows exactly what it's doing. See, that's where I'm at. And I'm going to explain something real quick, and I want to get your take on it, Jake, because I know you have strong feelings on this topic. The big thing for me, I have a good friend who's a very successful business owner. And I saw one time on his work polos, their name was backwards. And I'm like, well, he must have got a deal on those shirts, right? That's the first thing I thought. And when I asked him about it, he goes, well, no, I said, can I ask you what, you know, the name's wrong on your shirt? And he went, yeah. And he just kept talking about what we were talking about. And I'm like, I asked him again, I'm like, why are you even wearing the shirt? You got money to buy new shirts. Like, what are you doing? He said, people are more likely to remember our business name if they have to think about it twice. And I was going, damn, Pretty smart. There's a reason he's successful. You can go, "Oh, that's stupid." I guarantee the person who's saying, "Oh, that's stupid's" working for far less money than they want to, for a boss that they absolutely despise, to pay for a house they can't afford, to impress people they don't even like. You know what I'm saying? Like, so there's a reason he's successful. So I think there's something to this, Jacob. What's your take on it? I know it's frustrating for all of us, but I see what Matt's saying here.
You know, I think it could be done. I think that you would, in my opinion, it'd be more beneficial if you kept the same crew that you had right now, but just added in that element of, I mean, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and you cannot tell me that they can't figure out a way to use new technology, camera angles, eye in the sky, whatever you want to call it. Like, hire 5 people that are brilliant at what they do at a replay, you know what I mean? Really quick replay analysis, and have guys that are trained throughout the whole rule book of the NFL. Is it true? Guys in the chat, maybe hit this up. Is it true that the NFL doesn't have full, quote unquote, full-time refs? I mean, like, how many refs are there and how many crews? You know what I mean? There's got to be almost less than 100. You can't tell me that you can't dwindle and find the top referees. Even, like, there's so many ways to go at this. You can't tell me that guys can't be judged on a basis. I mean, the crew we had, freaking Brad Allen, they weren't even supposed to be allowed to referee in the playoffs. I mean, how do they get in? And then some of the calls they made. I mean, yesterday, it's like most years, once the Packers are done, I just don't have any love to watch any more games. It just is bittersweet to me. So I barely watched anything, but the few times that I watched the Chiefs game, I saw just some really screwed up calls, man.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy.
Stuff that you can't. I mean, dude, did you see when they took the safety and just all of a sudden screwed a lot of people out of some bets there? It just was like,
tweeted out over the non-call hip drop tackle. It's up to almost 7 million views now.
The non-drop hip, yeah, exactly. I saw a couple flags that were just given to Mahomes per usual for quote unquote roughing the. I mean, it's a sloppy product, and I think they have to be careful, because obviously we're here talking about it. Like you said, it's that kind of effect, but you can only do that for so long, because then you're going to start having people like myself. I mean, I swear, I'm a 30+ year loyal, diehard NFL fan. Look at my whole office is covered in NFL memorabilia. I've given this stupid freaking company more money than I want to admit. I know you have too, Clayton. And it's like,
yeah,
if a fan like myself is questioning whether or not, like, what I consider probably my passion, my hobby, anything, you know what I mean, other than a few things, something I care about quite a bit, is starting to question whether or not this is real, or if it doesn't have a finger on the scale in some sort of way. I think that's despicable, and the NFL better listen up quick, because I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And here's the thing about the part-time officiating. The reason I do this, Jacob, I'm pretty sure a listener looked up the salary, and we make it sound like, and I'm as guilty as anyone, because I've always heard that and just repeated it. We make it sound like they're making $30,000 a year and they got to get something else. If I remember correctly, it was a 6-figure income.
Right.
So, like, that whole, and I just say that respectfully, because the whole part-time argument that, they're not really full-time, that's really BS. They do it. They can do it full-time. Now, does it mean they tell them to disappear for a part of the year and come back? I don't know all the logistics there. But someone had look it up for me. Let's fact check that real quick here live on the air, because there was a listener that said, I think it was over 6 figures. I'm almost positive it was over 6 figures that NFL officiating gets paid. So I think it's something that it's kind of that convenient ignorance on the part of the owners. They want that little buffer there. So, does it mean that they could put their thumb on the scale a little bit? Possibly. I hope that's not the case, but possibly. But also, we're talking about it right now, man. We're talking about it right now. So that's the way that works.
We were talking about Hawk Tua girl quite a bit too, and all of a sudden you see how that goes. People just because we're talking about something doesn't mean it's going to be long lasting. You know what I mean? If anything, I'd say that's more of the flash in the pan type mentality. I mean, I remember there was bad officiating. There's always been bad calls, but it seems like since Vegas got involved with the daily fantasy and the sports betting, that things are just off the wire. And maybe it's because we're seeing more games. I remember back in the day, growing up, even through the 90s and the early 2000s, you basically had 2 games you could watch. You know what I mean? You had what's on CBS and what was on Fox, and then you had your Monday night game, and that was pretty much it. So maybe it's a fact that now we're watching, basically you get all 16, whatever games are per week, 15 or whatever, and you're seeing everything in instant replay, slowed down, 4K digit, you know what I mean? So there could be a little bit of that. is Josh Martin, is that real?
It's real.
205 to 250 salary. Yo,
bet it
find me a
crosses
part-time job. Pays
You
250.
see what I'm saying? Like, we've always and we have bought right into it. It's a part-time job. It's a part-time job. It's not a part-time job. Let's stop saying that. I had to stop saying it because I thought the same thing. Yeah, two different websites. TimeObserver.com says 205,000 to 250,000, and then a second website, RefSports.com, actually says 205 to 270. Is what
Good Lord.
So, yeah, that's what I mean by it's not a part-time job.
Yeah.
Now, 20 years ago, it might have been the case, right? That's changed. Now, people were going, well, why don't the NFL say, no, that's not true. It's not a part-time job. We pay our officials very good money. Why don't they say that? Because then we stop talking about it a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So,
I think Milton Corey brings up a great example. It says bad officiating makes more fans leave. I haven't watched an entire NBA game this year because of bad officiating. I think that's a great point. The NBA used to be awesome. Dude, the NBA in the 90s with Jordan, but guys like Dennis Rodman and David Robinson and freaking Charles Barkley, those guys played vicious. Like when you went into the paint, you knew you were going to get an aggressive either foul or you're going to see dudes throwing elbows. And now you watch, they shoot 100 threes a game. Like and they double, triple, they freaking travel constantly. It's just, right. and it ruined the product. And what they did is what the NFL is doing right now. They just thought, well, let's just expand into other countries. That way it'll make up for the viewership that we've lost here and there. But the thing is you're putting out a piss poor product and the people are realizing that. And I don't want to see the NFL. It feels like Goodell, all he's worried about is staying PC, that they're expanding into Europe, they're expanding into other countries. And he's just looking at, I think, dollar signs. I thought, and I just, and they do this stupid stuff. I don't know, I saw some comedians. He's real quick. He's like, man, I always was just going to be racist until I saw that the NFL wrote "end racism" on the end of the in the touch, and now I just don't. Thanks, NFL. I really needed that.
We did it.
We did it.
Yeah. Yeah. So just to confirm, the NFL is not losing anyone though. Their ratings are at a 9-year high, is what it says. That was as of September 26. Is it up or down? And it says, let's see, the National Football, and here's just a quick Google search, fact check it yourself. This is sportspro.com. So in September, going into the season, the viewership was up. It was up to a 9-year high. All right. Now, this little Google search says the National Football League averaged 17.5 million viewers for regular season games during the 2024 season. So this is the most recent information right here. It was a 2% decline on the previous campaign. So it's saying here, as the numbers came in for the regular season, it actually dropped 2%. So that lends a little credence to what you're saying there, Jacob. So There you go. Tim, what's up, buddy? How you doing, man? In your undisclosed location over there in witness protection.
How many times are you going to come to my press conference late?
Hit himself with it. I like it, man.
I might have had a glass or two of bourbon last night in celebration of the shellacking that those Lions fans took at home. How's it feel to blow a playoff game at home, Detroit? You like it? Feel good? Yeah.
Aren't you glad you won 15 games just to exit your first game of the playoffs?
We know how that feels. We know how that feels.
They're fans.
But we're not as insufferable as Detroit Lions fans are, though. So they got what they deserve.
Did you see those quote unquote diehard fans? They were exiting it with like 7 minutes left.
That was hilarious.
Yeah.
And the post game show.
That's why I have no respect for Lions fans at all. You guys are trash, and so is your organization. See you next year.
The post game shows were just awesome. I was laying there in bed like a little kid watching it, like on a school night. You're not supposed to have the TV on. It was unbelievable. So, Boz in the chat says, the air smells better this morning. The coffee tastes better. Today is a good day, y'all. Yes, sir, it is. It is, man. Exciting times. Raider McCready says, on the plus side, I think he meant on the plus side, I think the Chiefs could lose next week. Buffalo and Ravens are really good, in my opinion. It's going to take those reps helping those Chiefs out a lot, man. It was really egregious yesterday. You could tell from the first snap who they wanted to win with their thumb on the scale. It was so freaking obvious. It wasn't even funny, man. And we could go through just play after play, the phantom helmet to helmet hit on Patrick Mahomes. The other one, Patrick Mahomes scrambled around for what felt like 45 seconds. And then as soon as three defenders within a half a foot of him, he drops to his butt. They touch him, penalty. It's like, what are we doing here? What are we doing?
Did y'all cover the fine that they finally released on the hit with Nixon? I'm sure you did, right?
Yeah, we hit it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, come on, man.
It's crazy. And it's almost like that's supposed to make it better. No, that makes it worse. It doesn't make it better. It makes it worse, you bunch of idiots. CJN, good morning, all. Headed to a Schwabenon. Let's go. But hey, listen, go over there and just knock on the door at 1919 Kitchen and Tap and say, hey, man, can y'all just cook me up a quick little bowl of that oak stroganoff? Just a little bit. You think they'll do it, Tim?
They might. You never know.
They ain't doing that, Tim. Come on. Let's be.
It's so doggone cold today, though.
You gotta pull a Tommy boy. All right, we'll go fire up the grill. All right.
Exactly. Romero in the chat. I remember being a Packer fan as a boy in the 70s. They stunk then, but I was still a loyal fan. And I'm telling you, the 70s and 80s fans, I can't say it enough. Thank y'all for holding down the fort while most of those teams.
And in the 90s too. I remember the 90s, knocking on the door, not quite over the hump yet, a little bit of heartbreak, but you saw the flashes for the future. I love Packer fans. I love being a Packer fan. I despise Lions fans, period.
I'm with you there, man.
I mean, seriously, you talked about the 70s and the 80s, the dark ages. Nobody ever left a game early then. You were still sold out. People stayed till the bitter end because you love your team, you support your team. I know I don't expect Lions fans to understand how that goes because most of them became fans like 5 minutes ago, so they don't quite get it.
And that was my response to the guy who said that we're now going to find out what it's like to be a poverty fringe. And it's like, bro, we've sold out since the 60s through two of the worst decades football teams have ever had.
And you have never seen paper bags over our heads.
Right. And you guys had the worst average attendance in the entire league the full first year of Dan Campbell's tenure. So don't act like this is something that's just always been this way. It's silly. So, yeah, it's funny, though. The internet's forever. So, 2-0 for this. Colson Yankoff gets activated for one game, and they demolish the 1 seed. Coincidence? Nah, bro. I don't know if you guys seen it. I seen the back of his jersey one time, and I busted out laughing. I'm like, there he is. There's the man of the hour. He made it. Hilarious. 2-0 for this also said, there is no coincidence for poor officiating, only being rewarded if you're good by getting the Super Bowl. These are people. We aren't training dogs. Yeah, it's I will say this, and I think someone mentioned it here in the chat. If I can find it right here. Daniel Irish said, Europeans, you like that profile pic, don't you? Europeans won't have a problem with Mahomes flopping. They're used to it from watching soccer. I'll tell you this, man, I do have to tip my cap to the officials for not throwing a flag on that play. And I love the fact that Brady pointed it out. I love the fact that, everybody roasted Mahomes, and rightfully so. I remember earlier this year, I put a tweet out of him flopping. The Chiefs fans come running in and said, that ain't a flop. He's never flopped. Show me one flop. I put together a highlight reel of 10 times where he flopped. And they said, there ain't one flop on there. And then last night on national television. So hopefully they get the point. Now, that was pathetic. It's embarrassing is what it is, man. It's embarrassing.
At least in soccer, they actually penalize the player when they flop now, I believe. Like,
do they?
A yellow card. And then
they started to do that in the NBA, didn't they, if I remember correctly?
I think
I've heard
so.
people talk about that.
Yeah, so like 2-0 for this is saying, give the refs credit for not throwing the flag on the flop. I mean, that's great. Don't get me wrong, but like, how about throwing a flag for flopping? How about right. The personal foul, unnecessary acting?
Yeah, exactly. And you change the rule to the whole hip drop tackle, but you won't throw the flag for it. Right? All year long, we've seen it. They get fined, and they'll try not to. And it's like, man, are you really trying to get that out of the game or not? J. Cole, don't forget the money that they're making with sports betting, man. That's where it's at right now, no doubt. Prince in the chat. Lions fans were too depressed to burn their city.
Nobody would have noticed anyway.
Yeah, right.
That's true. Fred McFarley, I remember being a fan of this show in the 2024s. It sucked then and it sucks now, but I'm still a loyal fan. Thanks, Fred. Appreciate you, buddy. And you're right, it does suck. There's no two ways.
Hold on, I got one for Fred. It took me a minute here.
Heard it from a fan right here.
There you go.
There you go.
Somebody hit me up on Twitter. I'm trying to remember who it was, but there was a a reporter outside of the stadium talking about just how devastating the loss was, and one of our listeners sent me that clip, and he put in all caps, "Heard it from a fan." Absolutely awesome. So let's do this again. We just wanted that as a backdrop there. The Commanders absolutely beat the snot out of the Lions, 45-31. I bet people who interviewed Aaron Glenn's going, wait just a minute, guys. We may not want him as head coach because they got the crap kicked out of them.
What about the trick play merchant? How do you think his stock's looking right now?
I think his stock is safe enough, Tim.
Yeah,
because most coaches will look at that play and go, throw that thing away. What are you doing trying to chuck and duck? As you know, it's kind of like the one that happened to us that Xavier McKinney caught. Was that against Chicago? Keenan Allen threw it. A coach, an organization is not going to look at that and go, boy, what a bad play call. They're definitely going to look at it though and say, what are you doing? It wasn't there. Throw it away. Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, Aaron Glenn though, man, he had no answers for Jaden Daniels, and Jaden Daniels is the truth, boys.
And can we talk about Cliff Kingsbury for a minute in his bag? Holy cow.
Yep.
Holy cow.
He should be, and you're going to see these guys as they get eliminated, they're going to begin interviewing. Obviously, you're not going to see Cliff do that yet, but you'll probably see a little bit of hesitation from other teams to go, hey, we don't want to make a decision yet. Let's go interview Cliff Kingsbury. Let's go interview, maybe the next round, whoever it is, with Baltimore, with Buffalo, right? That's what kind of holds up the coaching hire, obviously, every year. But yeah,
big shout out to former Packer Joe Witt also for a hell of a game as well.
Where's he the DC? Is it Washington? I think.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So he'll probably get a little bit of interest too there. So the beautiful thing is I want to get your take on this, Jacob, because we haven't talked much. I really feel good about Jeff Hafley staying in Green Bay now. I don't think there's any chance he gets a head coaching job anywhere. Am I wrong there? Do you kind of see it the same way?
I mean, I sure hope so. There's a lot of really talented coaches out there and guys that are up and coming and guys that deserve the shot as far as maybe some offensive coordinators. I just somehow I know with all those capable candidates, the Bears are going to drop a big turd ball wherever they're doing. They will. But I really do hope and pray that Hafley, I mean, I would love to see what this guy, you've seen what he did with 1 year. I want to see what he can do with like a 2 or 3 at least year stint with us, really with some of the same guys, especially with a guy like X. Hopefully Quay's coming back. You know what I mean? Like we're just really building some sturdy bases. And I want to see, hopefully, I think that he really has to kind of take credit for the way that the secondary responded. And because we didn't think that we had some gems there. I myself was very worried about that group specifically going into the season, as well as the linebacking crew. And I think that those two drastically outshined. And I think that the D-line probably undershined. Just if I had to break it down, that would probably be my least well-performed group of the year. And I think that hopefully we get another year of Hafley, another offseason where he can maybe implement a little more. He talked about how he wanted everything being very simple, but hopefully he has maybe a little more that he can add into the bag. And if we get him some more weapons, especially on the edge, I think we got a chance to have a really, really solid defense for a long time if he can stick around.
Yeah. And the big thing I wanted to point out here, Jared Goff, the biggest game of his career, right? Outside of the Super Bowl he played with the LA Rams, which, by the way, that's why they moved on from him, is because they didn't think he could win the big one, right? And Sean McVay is actually quoted as saying, I wanted a partner at quarterback, not a student, not a pupil, right? So once again, he 23 of 40, 313 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions that he threw. Did he fumble too? He may have fumbled. I don't think he did. Yep, he did. Lost the fumble as well. So he turned the ball over. Jared Goff turned the ball over 4 times. Now I want you to rewind back this year, and not too long ago, where these Lions fans were saying, oh, y'all got a bum in Jordan Love. And, Jared Goff, he turned the football over 4 times in a playoff game. Do we need to pull Jordan Love's up? Because the best of my knowledge, I don't even know, did Jordan even turn the ball over? He threw what, 3 interceptions in that game, right? That last game there as well. So here you've got both quarterbacks throwing 3 interceptions in the same game. What, pretty much the biggest game of the year, the playoffs. What makes you think Jared Goff is so much more qualified than Jordan Love?
I don't know.
You understand what I'm saying? And
He's
Love
a
is
check down merchant, man. And look
Love
what
is
happens
younger.
when you have a check down merchant try to throw the ball down the field. It gets picked off.
Exactly. So anyway, I thought that was funny. Jared Goff, all of a sudden, and people were calling into that post game show I was listening to, and they were ready to get rid. And the host is the biggest Jared Goff fan. Listen, I understand if you go, hey, I want to see more next year. You know, I want to make sure he's the guy. He was just like, I'm not going to hear any Jared Goff slander. I'm like, okay, bud.
I listened to that as I fell asleep last night, and I remember like 30 minutes of it, and I was just like, I swear to God, I fell asleep like just smiling and laughing, dude.
It was great. It was manna, no doubt about it. Let's see. We'll go to the Patreon group in a minute. Let's finish up this chat here. CJN, Eddie George being interviewed in Chicago for head coach. I like Eddie George. Jacob, you probably got a little bit of history with Eddie George, at least being around Nashville, right? He's still a big face out there in the Nashville scene, correct?
I actually, so I worked at Bar Louie in the Gulch in Nashville, and Eddie George would come in there kind of as a regular, and he was notoriously kind of rude to servers, and he didn't like people coming up to him and talking. But me and him actually developed a good relationship, and I was his server for like, I don't know, maybe 10 different times that he came in, and he would tip the crap out of me. And I loved him. My little brother growing up, for whatever reason, he was a Titans fan, because that was when they changed their logo, and that was like the first. He was in love with God, what's his name? I can't remember the freaking one of their weird, obscure wide receivers that they had at the time. And Javon Curse. He loved Javon Curse.
Yeah,
but I told my brother, and he had an Eddie George jersey. It was the first jersey that he ever bought. It killed my father to buy him an Eddie George jersey, and I told Eddie George that, and he loved it. I don't know why he thought it was so hilarious. So
that's good stuff.
He was a cool dude, though. Very nice.
Yeah, I've always heard good things about Eddie George, stand-up dude. So, listen, man, you never know, right? Some of these former players are getting into coaching now. It seems like more than not. Like if Ben Johnson leaves, I wonder if Antoine Randall will become the new OC in Detroit, right? Another guy that we grew up, watching play the game for sure. So, Professor Cakes, once Ben Johnson leaves, Detroit is going to fall hard. It feels that way, doesn't it, Cakes? It really does, man. Fred McFarley, Macho Tough Guy Campbell left the presser early in tears. My heart swelled. All big, the lines are gritty. The lines are tough. The lines are, okay.
I've seen Dan Campbell cry more times than Matt LaFleur. I'll say that.
Just saying. Just saying. Right?
So, we're going to give him some.
Let's go to the Patreon group, see what they're saying in here. I'm probably getting roasted. Greg S. says, after looking through all the free agents, it seems like your thought process is go after 1 to 2 mid-tier guys and spend the rest on front-loaded contract extensions. Is that correct? I wouldn't say it's like my complete thought process is. It's definitely an option, Greg. I am simply saying that just because you don't need money now doesn't mean you won't restructure contracts. And the reason being is when you restructure contracts, you lower the overall cap hit. And that's the goal here. So if you could take, let's say they don't make a single free agent signing. And listen, I hope they do, right? I hope they go out and they're very aggressive and they try to add a little bit of veteran leadership to this team, especially on the offensive line. I think that would be a good move, me personally. But let's say you don't sign anyone and you've got potential somewhere between 32 and 64 million in potential restructure, right? If you restructure that money and you save that cap space, whether you use it or not, can roll into next year. So it may be more about, hey, let's set ourselves up for a decent situation next year, and we got to make a decision on these guys. Zach Tom's going to get a contract extension. You got to make a decision on Christian Watson, who's not going to play till probably week 12. You got to make a decision on Romeo Dobbs. Are you going to extend him? You got Rasheed Walker coming up for a contract as well, right? So you got all these different aspects of the game. Now, you can use a franchise tag, but you want to stay away from that, right? So yeah, I think what you're saying here with the free agents, I want to get your all's take. We got a short list. I've got an extremely short list of free agents that I like, and we haven't dove really too deep, but I feel comfortable saying this is probably the way the list will read. I'm okay with them signing any of these guys. Linebacker Bobby Wagner, guard Kevin Zeitler, wide receiver Chris Godwin, center Drew Dowman, guard Trey Smith, tackle Alaric Jackson, cornerback Carlton Davis, cornerback Byron Murphy, linebacker Dre Greenlaw, cornerback DJ Reed, or guard/center Tristan Colon Castillo. Any of those guys, I'm willing for them. I'm good with them to sign. If you say, Clayton, you got the checkbook, you can sign any of these free agents for a reasonable price. Not saying I'll outbid anyone who bids on them, right? But let's say you can go get them for market value. I would go sign Drew Dalman as center. Probably going to cost you somewhere between $7 to $10 million per 3-year deal. You can get out of it in 2. No big deal. Let's see if it kind of stops that flow there, right? And I would go after wide receiver Chris Godwin if the money isn't crazy. Those are the 2 that really stick out to me. In terms of maybe a third, I would love to have Bobby Wagner. I just don't think he's going to leave Washington, man. He's not going to leave Washington. He's there with Dan Quinn. We talked about this, Tim. He's in the perfect spot, right? And he's the leader of that defense. Don't be surprised if Washington wins the whole damn thing.
I was just going to say, and don't be surprised if Bobby just hangs it up if that happens too. Right?
Exactly.
I mean, what an opportunity for him to get another ring and then ride off into the sunset. I mean, watching that game last night, you can tell that ankle is still an issue. Just the way he moves, he hasn't lost a step, but this is a guy clearly grinding through, an entire career's worth of injuries. He's getting older, still highly effective, still an anchor on that defense. But yeah, if they win it all, man, I think he might retire for sure.
Yeah. Now, what if – I know some people were saying, what if Jair Alexander leaves and he's not a Packer, right? 3 options for me in free agency. Carlton Davis, 74.5 PFF grade, 28 years old, from Detroit, played in Detroit this year. Cornerback Byron Murphy, 27 years old, 73.4 PFF grade, played in Minnesota this year. And cornerback DJ Reed, who played for the Jets, 28-year-old, 70.7. He's obviously got some ties to Robert Saleh, who I personally think will be a DC somewhere else next year, most likely. Jacob, anything you want to add to the free agent talk there? And I don't know how much time you got. Are you with us the whole show, or you got a bail?
Whole show, baby. I got the day off today.
Here's the guy.
Now here, if we can,
yeah,
me and Tim, if you guys remember, we went on about a week and a half rant about how we needed Bobby Wagner on this team when the season started, and people said he's too old. He's not going to make it. Blah 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 blah. The dude, I believe, wasn't he the top ranked PFF linebacker in the whole league?
90.1, Jake.
I mean, I shudder to think. Obviously, I love our linebacker play this year in most of the ways, but imagine if we had Bobby Wagner, Quay Walker, and Edge Cooper. I mean, what? It just would be insane. That being said, I am on board with the idea of the Chris Godwin thing if the contract is right, like you talked about. It just, to me, it does seem like a long shot, and I don't know. I mean, somebody in the chat said, or I believe it was in your Patreon there, they're like, when's the last time that a free agent wide receiver worked out in Green Bay? And he wrote Desmond Howard. I would say Andre Rison, remember that guy? But other than that, I sincerely can't remember. I mean, people could argue with Sammy Watkins. You all saw how that went.
Stop it.
Martellus Bennett, if you want to include tight end. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. There's really, I can't think of it. We've been weirdly homegrown with the wide receiver groups, and I'd actually like to maybe get in Castillo as just plug in another really solid starting guard so that we don't maybe have to worry about that position so much and maybe moving other people. And
26 years old.
Yeah. I mean, Drew Dahlman as well. I mean, he's just, if you can find one solid peg to just throw, if not 2, but if for just one solid peg to throw on that offensive line, I think we've seen this year for the first time in a long time what a offensive line that can run the ball does for your team, does for your quarterback. I'd love to see us stay consistent in that. And just shore that up.
And like
we don't want to end up like these guys,
dude. That's the worst.
Still looking for that championship. Can't find it though.
He looks like that one of the brothers from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. That's always drinking milk, the McCools or whatever.
Jacob, if you think that's creepy, go watch the video.
I don't want to.
It's just the most subtle pelvic thrust, constantly. It is the creepiest thing you'll ever see. I'm like,
he's no Rasheed Walker, but he knows how to.
Just working on my hip flexor. Milltown Corey, I don't think Commanders will let Bobby leave after what he's done for them this year. Hey, I got to agree, man. That's kind of where we're at, right, Tim? It's going to be highly unlikely that Bobby Wagner is available for the Packers to just go in there and say, here's $7 million, come play linebacker. That's probably not going to happen. But again, put him on the list because he's at the top of my list. With the free agents coming up, him and Drew Dalman, and listen, Dalman may be a waste, right? Let me finish up the super chat, and then we're going to get to Drew Dalman here in a second. I want you guys to kind of see. We'll do a little deep dive and go, okay, is this the guy we would want at center? Randy Cleaver says, what do you think we will do in free agency, D tackle, corner, or wide receiver? If I were to have to pick one there, Randy, it would probably be
corner.
If Jair's gone, it would be corner. If Jair's on the roster, and I think right now it's probably 50-50 either way, it would be wide receiver over D tackle. And I say that because if you sign a defensive tackle in free agency, it's got to be just kind of an under-the-radar guy. It's not like hey, here's our true 3-tech, right? Milton Williams out of Philly, 70.4. Sebastian Joseph Day, 70.3 out of Tennessee. B.J. Hill out of Cincinnati, 70.2. And a Levi, I can never get it. Ozarike, was it Ozarike? Tim, help me out here, man. What are you doing?
Who?
That's good enough. He's out of Detroit, 69.4. And shout out to Snoop. Poor Snoop getting raked over the coals right now. God forbid somebody agree to do a music performance, right? Rich Beck in the Patreon group. Free agent wide receiver hasn't worked out since Desmond Howard, question mark. Defensive line seems safer. Saw on Instagram that A. Jones is coming back. Must be true. You talking about Aaron Jones coming back?
Hey, that'd be great. If we could have a 1-2 punch of freaking Jacobs and Jones. We had it for 30 minutes, and that was the best 30 minutes of my life.
Don't be sleeping on my boy Emmanuel Wilson now.
I was going to say, Jacob, the problem is I don't think Aaron Jones could beat out Emmanuel Wilson right now.
I love Emmanuel as well. And plus, we got A.J. Dillon coming back too. So,
yeah, exactly. So there you go. That's the Patreon group. Appreciate y'all. Questions, comments. You guys and gals are awesome. If you want to join our Patreon group, just scan the QR code in the upper right, send you to Packer Fan Total Access over at Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access. Got a multitude of chats in there for everybody to kind of communicate. It's a really cool community come together. We also do giveaways where we're going to be mailing out. Mark Zambito is going to get mailed out a Carl Brooks autographed photo of him blocking the kick against the Bears earlier this year. And we're going to be doing another giveaway probably next week. I had to comb through, see what we got memorabilia-wise. We got several autographed jerseys. I know we got a Robert Brooks autographed jersey over there in the pile. We got all kinds of cool stuff. So just a way for us to give back to those who are supporting the channel. Also, if you're a member on YouTube and you go, I don't want to mess with Patreon. If you're a member on YouTube, you also get entered into those giveaways when we spin the wheel. So appreciate everybody supporting the channel in whichever way you choose to do so. Let's talk about Drew Dalman just a second, guys. That's a name that keeps getting brought up. Here's the other thing. He may reach an agreement with the Atlanta Falcons too, right? That's a possibility. But this is what we've got in Drew Dalman. Let me zoom out just a touch, see if we can get some of the grades up here. Can y'all see that okay? Is that all right?
That's a bigger center too.
Yeah, he's 6'3", 300 pounds, right? Played at Stanford. He was a 4th-round selection back in 2021. And his PFF grades on his career starting in 2021, only 68 snaps, but 78.3. Played 1,000 snaps his second year in 2022, 65.9. 2023, he jumped all the way to an 82.3 PFF grade. And then in 2024, this year, he settled in at a 78.8. So what you're seeing is the most common grade throughout his career is it's pretty much mid-70s is what he would average out to, right? Now, you go, Clayton, that isn't great, right? No, I mean, it's not like Hall of Fame caliber or anything. But, guys, we're used to having a 50 grade at center, right, between the 50s and 60s with Josh Myers. Now, I'm still not ruling out that the Packers bring back Josh Myers. I want to put that out there because I think fans will be very disappointed if it does happen and they're all shocked. I think there's a realistic chance there. But what do you guys think about Drew Dalman? Put that name in my mouth right there. What do you guys think about Drew Dalman here? You guys on board with it? Am I building him up too much? Because only 4 years in the league, and centers typically last a little bit longer than other offensive linemen. We signed him to a 3-year deal. What do you think, man?
I mean, dude, especially if, like you said, what you thought maybe 7 mil per year. I mean, if that's the case, to lock down what I would consider at least a top 10 center in the league. And I believe it was Clayton that you shared a screen grab of the remaining teams in the NFL playoffs and what their centers ranked or what their grade was on PFF. And there was a pretty similar trend that I think it was other than the Rams center that they all graded at least fair, if not great. Basically, It went from like I think low 80s to most of them were in the mid 70s, some 60s. And then that's a good point. Josh Martin's asking if Love wants Myers back.
This is what Goody said. Goody said Love trusts him a lot, right? Now, I want to pause for a minute. Last time we heard the word trust, it was all about Aaron Rodgers trusting his receivers, and everybody lost their damn mind over it, right? That's a real thing too.
I just caught the ball. Man.
If Aaron couldn't control the players coming and going for most of his career, I can't imagine Jordan Love goes to Goody and goes, "Hey, I want Myers back," and they bring him back. But I think that might have been Goody, Tim. I think it might have been Goody kind of playing a little bit of chess, not checkers, to Myers, like, "Hey, man, we really want you back for the right price, of course, right?" So you get him back for $3 million per, I'm on board. But if we're talking 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 million per, I can't do it, man. I just can't. What do you think?
And I'm sure Jordan has, some kind of input. I'm sure they're going to listen to, their players, but I don't think that's going to have an ultimate bearing on their final decision. Goody's going to do what's best for this team, period. And we'll see. But yeah, I think it might be a little gamesmanship on Goody's part, right? Trying to set that market right now for Josh. We'll see what happens, though. I'm just glad that everything turned out well with the leg. We wouldn't even be having this conversation if it was worse.
Yeah, definitely. And Matthew Love rebuttals Josh Martin and says, "This Love does not want Myers back." All right. There you go. Yeah, again, it's a rough year for Myers. I don't want to pile on too much, but, it is what it is. That's going to do it for hour one. For those of you listening on the pod, we'll see you on the other side for hour two. We appreciate y'all. Go ahead, Jacob. Did you have a comment here to kick off hour two? Tell the people how you feel.
I did, sir. Actually, that's perfect, Tim. If you could scroll down and just look, I think something that maybe Drew Dahlman brings to the table is look at his run blocking grades for his career. Mm-hmm. Can you scroll down a little bit, Clay, and show that real quick?
Absolutely.
If you look at him, that first year he was in, obviously you said he only had about 68 snaps, so you can't really judge that. But look at that, 92.3. When he was full on, had 1,000+ snaps, he has a 69.5. It doesn't sound great, but that's solid. That's a consistent blocker there. In 2023, the year we had the second most snaps of his career, 932, he had a 90 grade run blocking. And then last year, or this year, 2024, he had a 79.8. To me, that sounds like the leader of the pack, no pun intended. Like I said, I want to keep this going. I have not remembered in my lifetime, minus maybe like the Amon Green years, where we had just a road grader type offensive line that could also pass block, but when we wanted to run the ball, we could just shove it down your mouth. And for him to be the point of attack on that, and then maybe, like I said, if we could get Dahlman, and even if we wanted to go and find a Castillo or maybe upgrade in the draft, or hopefully Jordan Morgan takes a step and we got Jenkins and maybe Morgan or Jenkins and plug in whoever else at that guard position, I'm pretty confident in those tackles. I mean, I want us to look at what happened this year. We lost because we lost in the trenches, I would argue. We need to build up both sides of that ball. We need to revamp the D-line with guys that are actually going to show up and play. And I think the offensive line just needed to be a little more fine-tuned. We saw what happened that's when Jenkins went out, and then when Myers went out, that offense just stopped. It just did. So I'm excited.
Let's go to the chat here. Fred McFarley says Myers will fetch $10 million per, Dahlman probably $12 million, in my opinion. That could happen. And we showed it doesn't matter what we think they're worth, right? That's why I was saying like $7-8 million. If you can get them for there, I'm on board. If you're saying you got to pay $12 million average annual value of the contract for Dahlman, I get a little hesitant there, because I would rather just kick Elton over and bang your contract. The structure of the contracts in your organization on the balance sheet, to me, would be perfectly in place. Your top paid players would be right tackle, center, and then probably left tackle when you extend Rasheed Walker, if they go that route. So that's what you're looking for when you model your roster. I'm willing to pay no more than 3 offensive linemen, top dollar, like top money, right? It's left tackle, right tackle, and center. I'd prefer left tackle and center and leave right tackle out. Tom's just such a damn good player. You gotta re-sign him. Doesn't matter what position you play. When you play at the level Zach Tom's played at, you gotta extend him. So let's see what else we got here. Prince says Packers did sign a center to futures contract, Trey Hill out of Georgia, round 6, pick 180 by the Bengals. So there you go. They're adding a little depth there. Prince also said hour 2, we need Jacob Beardsickle picks. All right, Jacob. No, all right, ain't gonna happen. It was shrinkage. Fred McFarley says, yep, Hill and Monk are similar prospects. Just need one to emerge. And that's the thing is like, it's such an important, are we going to do this again? This is what we talked about, right, Tim? Like, are we really going to do this again? We're just going to settle for a center that's, hey, he's not bad at football. And then you're looking up, you're getting bounced in the first round, in the wild card round, and all these other teams are advancing and they got great center play. Sooner or later, we've got to accept the fact that we've got to improve this team at center. We've got to, man. Like Scott Wells, when they won the Super Bowl, Scott Wells was solid, boys. What a solid leader, overachiever. I mean, that dude, he's one of the reasons your team won a Super Bowl that year.
Yeah.
You got centers that important.
It's always the case, right? I mean, I think about Frankie Winters back in the day.
Frankie Bag of Donuts.
Old Frankie Bag of Donuts there, you know. The guy could really move bodies around there in the trenches.
Real quick, do you remember me and Timmy, I believe, were talking about Mike Sanders still? And he was one of those guys, and I see a theme that I hope that we all remember going into this draft, off season, is that there's the guys that flash with the RAS and all the flashy stuff and everything, but then there's just the guys that are good football players. And Mike Sanders still was one of those. And there's like maybe, I think, 10 to 15 other starters, rookies right now in the NFL, especially in the defense, that were just, they didn't have the greatest numbers, but they were just football players. They just came and they kind of exceeded what their 40 time was or what the reps they did on the bench or whatever their long jump, you know what I mean? Their high jump was. I think that this year, hopefully Goody is going to take a step back and see that especially in the first round, that it's not just about the RAS and what they could be. I want him to draft somebody that is already a great football player. Like you saw that. I think he knocked it out of the park with a guy like Edge Cooper, because Edge Cooper had that, he was kind of a freak of nature, but you watch him on tape and you're like, this dude is just good at football. Like, yeah, how that worked out. And
with Sanders still, he was the 6th ranked cornerback on our draft board last year. So we had a really high grade on him, but obviously I'd want a player like that too, Ben. He's not leaving Washington. It ain't gonna happen. Like he's got 3 more years on that contract, and they probably love him just as much as we did, right? So, but yeah, that type of player, if that's what you're saying, Ben, I completely agree with you, man. Sanders still, the writing was all over the wall for him as a prospect, that's for sure. Since we were kind of talking about center, I want to back up just a second. Again, no centers in the top 100 according to PFF in this year's draft, okay? But we did find a few that maybe later in the draft that you go, I like these guys, right? Now, again, are we going to do this again? Are we going to get to the point where, well, we're just going to bring in a 4th-round pick and hope it hits at center and he'll be ready in 3 years and we miss that window, right? That's why I'm more as the season goes along, I'm more on board with someone moving the center that's already played on the line. But just a few names here to mention, and in no particular order, okay? But these are the guys that kind of have some center experience, or they are true centers coming out of college that kind of caught my attention that are outside of the top 100. The first one is Jonah Monheim. Let me see if I can find him here real quick. He's ranked 139, right? And you see the PFF grades 81, 75, 70, a slight decline the entire time, but he played center this year for the first time. You talk about versatility and a guy that Goody may like. I mean, in 2022, he played right tackle and right guard. And then in 2023, he played left tackle. And then in 2024, he played center. He's not my favorite prospect, but that's one to keep an eye on there with Jonah Monheim. Next, you got Jake Majors. Hopefully we do this in a reasonable order so we can find these guys without too much dead air. I should probably just top them in, to be honest with you. Jake Majors. Let me just do that.
Majors will be I think he was on that first page, wasn't he?
Was he? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, no, there he is, 162.
All right, so Jake Majors, PFF grades 63, 70, and 72. They're showing him as a true center out of Texas. He played center his entire college career, so he is a true center. That's a name to kind of keep an eye out for if you're going to try to draft one. Drew Kendall from Boston College. All right, yeah. Boston College. I could probably sort these now that I know we're looking at centers. Let me do this real quick. Let me just go center, and that'll straighten that up for us.
Get all 8 of them. Let's see.
Exactly. Drew Kendall. Here we go. Ranked 232. You go, whoa, Clayton. Whoa. Right. 60, 70, 78. Got better his entire college career, and he's a true center. Look at his true pass set, pass block grade this year. 76.2 with the Packers. Love pass blocking centers. 81.5 is another number for pass blocking grade. Run blocking grade, 75.9. It's almost at the top of the graph.
This is my guy.
He doesn't have one single bad game. Look at that.
Right.
Look at the grades by game. Not one.
Steady Eddie, man. Maybe Nebraska at the very end, but man, all year long, Jacob, you're right. It's just steady, right? Solid grade. So that's one that makes the short list for me. Next, you'll have Gus Hartwig. See if we can find old Gussie boy. Oh, Gussie Hartwig. Here we go.
Gus.
281st. His PFF grade 71, 69, and 70. And you can see 2022 all center. In 2023, he played center mostly and kicked over to right tackle for 28 snaps, then came back to center in 2024. True pass set, pass block grade 76.8, pass block grade 82.1. Look at that game against Notre Dame, boys. 81.2 against that solid Notre Dame defense that's in the national championship. Went up against your Wisconsin Badgers on the road, 76.9.
Look
at Ohio State.
Wow.
That's another dude. So, again, this is my short list of centers. And then there was a guard that caught my eye as well. His name is Marcus Weir, but he's more of a right guard, right tackle. We'll leave that alone for right now. Those are the centers. I mean, we got to narrow it down.
Somebody to keep an eye on. That's why I like Marcus Weir too, because if we move, Big E, or we possibly move Nacho Libre, we're going to need some depth, and
Right.
A guy that's kind of a swing guard, if that's a term, can play both sides. I think he's intriguing for sure. Jacksonville State, right?
Yeah, that's the problem.
Montana State. Yeah,
that's the problem, is the lower school, right, Tim? Like that's what we worry about a little bit. But look at the grades, Jacob. He
Wow.
dominated.
That's
81,
crazy.
93 and 87. Yeah.
What do you think about what Joyce says here? She says, I'm assuming she, do you like drafting? Do like we did last year, basically drafting safeties 3 or 4 different times. I don't know if we draft 3 or 4 possible centers. I think possible centers is a good way of saying it. I'd say interior linemen. And obviously Goody has shown that he likes to do that when he has an area of need. There was a year that they drafted the 3 wide receivers. I think they've done that multiple times where they drafted D line pretty heavy. They drafted obviously the safety position like you talked about last year. I think that's what's going to happen this year. I would be shocked if he drafted less than 2 or 3 prospects that could fill into that either guard / center position.
Yeah, definitely. And again, what they love doing is drafting tackles and moving them to guard.
Yeah.
Right. That's what they love doing. And that's why we did an extensive deep dive on tackles. But again, that doesn't fix the center problem.
right.
That's why as you compile all this information and you ask questions and get answers, right? Center, not a whole lot of centers in this draft, especially in the top 100. There's 0 according to PFF. Okay. So that means that market is very thin. What does that do? That will typically drive up the market for the free agent centers, right? So Drew Dowman may get closer to, like Fred was saying in the chat, $12 million per. If that's the case, I don't know if I feel comfortable paying that kind of money for him. That's why, as you troubleshoot this, you guys know the flow chart everybody uses to make jokes with, right? The flow chart. When you get through the flow chart, it's like Elton Jenkins at center makes all the sense in the world to me. So that probably, if you made me bet, will they draft and start a center? Will they sign a free agent center and he be the starter? Or will they move Elton Jenkins or someone else who's already on the roster to center? My money will probably be on someone on the roster already playing center, is what it kind of feels like.
And if that's the approach, then what's wrong with taking a chance on one of these true centers that we just talked about? That's, maybe a project. If you've already got a plan to move somebody over, you can at least develop a rookie center for the long term.
Here's the only problem I find with it, Tim. It's a great question too. You've already got Jake Monk, right? So does Jake Monk just get cut now?
Jacob Monk.
You can only carry so many. You know what I'm saying? So many offensive linemen, and when it's a guy that's just a true center, that's tough. That's why the versatility comes into play. Because who's the true backup center on our roster right now? It's Monk, right? I mean, he played center in college, if I remember correctly. Is there another one? No, but who actually came in and played? It was Sean Ryan. So it's obvious that they don't like to carry too many true centers, which makes you think what Rob Domofsky said about the center of the future is already on the roster is what someone in the building told him. Now, they could have been BSing him, but that kind of feels like Jake Monk when you say it like that, either him or Elton Jenkins. So the problem
maybe once we hit camp, it's going to be Monk getting those reps right away. Yeah.
You guys remember he was a super really great team guy. He was getting the crowd all excited. Remember in the offseason? I mean, he was running up and down the sideline trying to get them all jazzed up. I mean, he seems like a great guy.
I want to say he was the guy too that was a 4-year captain. Is that what it was? 3 or
Yes.
4-year captain?
Yep, he was.
Really rare in college.
At Duke, right?
Yeah, Duke. Yeah.
Okay.
And listen, you got to be fairly sharp to go to Duke too. Let's be honest, right? If you're going to actually get a degree and not just use it as a football vocational school, right? So
I don't know. I'm not a doctor.
yeah. So it's going to be interesting, man, for sure. I don't know what's going on in the chat. I've seen censorship and I went, uh-oh. So I'm scared to look in there. Hopefully we're still up on YouTube. We are. We didn't do anything wrong, did we? I got something on my shirt. Does that logo offend anyone? And they took us down. I got to be careful. So there goes the algae again, guys. Sorry.
God, is this real? Josh Martin says, remember Jenkins has turned 31 this year? What?
Let's put his contract too. Let's have the tough conversation. Tim's probably gonna hate this, but let's have the tough conversation. No. You did this, Jacob. I'm blaming you. Let's go. Elton Jenkins spot track. Is it spot track or SPO track? Somebody help me out. I've heard it both ways 1,000 times. How would you say it?
I said spot track, but
spot track. Tim, get your vote in there, sir.
Get your
voice heard.
SPO track. Just to be different.
Just to be different.
Just to be a dick.
Just to be like this guy, you know. I think it's SPO track.
All right, here we go. This is Elton Jenkins' contract, and he is 30 years old this year. Okay, so he won't be 31. At least this is what his contract is saying. He won't be 31 until next year. Let me see if I can get this zoomed in a little bit more. I'm sorry, guys. That's what happened.
The center of the future is definitely not Elton Jenkins.
But that's the thing. Like, look at how long centers play. That's the other thing. You want to extend the offensive lineman's career. They usually go to center, right? Like Jeff Saturday was playing until he's 112. It felt like, right?
It's true.
It's Saturday.
If there is a position, I should say, right? So Elton Jenkins, and to kind of go to that too, Tim, that if you don't have the center of the future in this year's draft, I think we would agree there's not one that like sticks out or three of them like, hey, we can get one of these three guys. Maybe that is the route you take, right? But he's 30 years old this year. He turns 31 next year. But look at the structure of this contract. I'm going to have to zoom out a little bit to get it on the screen for you guys. Actually, I might be able to do this. Yeah, here we go. That's perfect because it's just one player. So notice the important numbers here are the cap hit is $17.6 million this year, okay? The dead cap is $9.6 million. So you got to eat a dead cap of $9.6 million, but you're going to free up, what would that be? Help me with the math there. Is that $8 million? Yeah, right? You free up $8 million if you cut him outright?
Yep.
Does that look right? I think that's right. Yeah. So if you cut him outright this year, you could free up $8 million. Obviously, we're not going to do that. We want Big E back. Next year, his number jumps to 24.8, and his cap penalty is only 4.8. So you can literally free up $20 million if you move on from him next year. And that's where you're getting that
$20 million.
Think about that, man. Seriously. And that's against our cap already. Is he going to play at that number? Absolutely not. He's going to be at the top of the list for possible restructures next year. But this year, he is 4th on our list for restructures. I think he's going to get a restructured contract this year. And what that'll consist of is that base salary of $11.7 million. He's only got a roster bonus of $6 million, so it'll all be done out of base salary. You would ask him to take a pay cut, but guarantee more of that $11.7 million, right? You'll probably free up the number I've got attached to him. I could see them looking to potentially free up $5 million, somewhere between $3 to $6 million. I said 5 right in the middle of cap space with Elton Jenkins' contract this year. So do I think he's going to get extended beyond 2026? Absolutely not. He may not even be on the roster in 2026. So Goody DiCaprio over there, boys, you know how that goes, right?
Yeah.
So that's why if you want to keep him on the roster and continue to save cap by doing these restructures, Tim, and I'll get your take on this, you move him to center, you can extend his career a little bit playing center as opposed to guard. And, okay, when I say extend his career, you can get through that 2026 year and, like I said, do a restructure, give a little bit more guaranteed money. You're paying cash for cap, so it works out better for the team if you've got the cash flow. And if you guys haven't been over there to Titletown, let me tell you, Packers got some cash flow right there.
I think it's a fair point, too, like you said, about the age being kind of a little less of a serious factor when it comes to, spots on the O-line. you look around the league, you see a lot of veteran guys that are, top tier talent still. And it's true. It kind of can extend the life of your career if you kick to center. We know Elton is capable of playing there. That may be a quick little Band-Aid for us for the next couple of seasons. But I still think, the elephant in the room is we need a center. We need a real center. And, Creed Humphrey, man, the one that got away, that one still stings, But I totally agree. I think that, Big E being on the wrong side of 30 is a little less of a red flag considering where he plays.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Jacob, you got anything else to add to that before I'm going to move over to Kenny Clark real quick. I seen a question about him or a comment about him.
Yeah. I mean, just it'll kind of bleed into that conversation. It just, I hate saying it, but it seems like the Packers have just made a mistake of paying players top dollar as far as what we get after we give them that money. And I hate saying Elton Jenkins is one of those, but to be completely honest, I think that when he first got paid, it was because he was that tackle guard prospect. And now we're talking about him as a guard center prospect. And you know what I mean? Like that doesn't usually happen if you're playing at a top tier level. He got hurt in the game. And it's just, he's one of those guys where going into this year, I would have never thought anything of it. But when I look at the performance of these players matched with how much we're paying them per year, it just is not, it's me no like you that. All right.
Exactly.
I don't like it.
Me no like you that, Jan. I told Mandy last night, I'm like, we gotta break the office back out. It's time to make it 2 or 3 passes through every season again.
Jan Leatherson Gould, I presume.
No Gould. Let's go to the chat before we talk Kenny Clark here real quick. Ron Sample, Matt Shore talked like they have big plans and confidence in Morgan and Lloyd this year. Talked about it with Schneiden. Bigger loss than we might have assumed. I'm telling you, man. And the people that roasted Jordan Morgan, that Jordan Morgan pick, it's obvious now more than ever. Goody's seen the lack of depth at offensive line, and that's what he was trying to fix, is to get a guy that can come in and compete for right guard and then play all over that offensive line from an interior standpoint or tackle and be able to fill in. It just so happens that's the dude who goes down and gets injured. Then Elton Jenkins gets injured by the way, it was friendly fire, if I remember correctly. No, that was Josh Myers' friendly fire. Elton Jenkins got injured by the dude spearing him with the crown of his helmet. Another ball, right? So funny how that works. I wonder if there was a fine for that one. We need to comb through and see if there was, because that was interesting that nobody even talked about the fact that dude put the crown of his helmet right into Elton's collarbone. But I think Ron's spot on here. I really do, man.
I agree. I think the Morgan being hurt was a little bit bigger of a hit than the Marshawn Lloyd. When you consider the depth we have in that running back room, we got to see a heavy dose of Emmanuel Wilson in his second year, which I was all about seeing. And I think hopefully nothing is long term as far as Marshawn Lloyd, because that dude, man, you look at his college tape, he just jumps off the tape at you. So hopefully we get to see him peppered in going into 2025.
Tim, would you want Lloyd over Chris Brooks?
Oof. At this point, no, because I like what I've seen from Brooks on tape too, and that was a pleasant surprise. But again, if you ask me today, I would say no. Ask me after OTAs, or ask me when we get in towards training camp and stuff. I might have a different tune, but either way, man, I feel really good about that running back room. We've got some beasts in the stable for sure.
Based off what I've seen, I would prefer Brooks over Lloyd at this moment, but I don't think Goody would. Goody's going, hey, get that new toy out there. Let's watch him run. And again, Matt LaFleur liked him. He referred to him as that. He said that little rocket in the backfield is what he said, right? Harry Cheese in the chat says, I really do think a smart center is still undervalued, especially since the rise of young quarterbacks. That's a great point. Seems to help with protections and letting the quarterback just play ball. I think there's a lot of truth to that, Harry. And then Chris N says Kenny Clark contract is dead weight around Goody's neck. Here is Kenny's contract right here, okay? And you guys probably see it a little bit better this time around, hopefully. So 2025 this year, $20.3 million cap hit, dead cap of 26.8, okay? So nothing you can do. Obviously, he was going to be on the roster this year. Next year, however, $31.3 million. Okay, when I say next year, I'm talking about 2026. $31.3 million is the cap hit. dead cap is 17 million flat. So you can free up, help me with the number there. Is that $13 million you can free up just by cutting Kenny outright? Okay.
Yeah, almost
Now,
14, yeah.
does that mean they'll do that? I'm not saying that. I will say this, though. How old is he that year? Let's see. 31. Yeah. I'll say this. I think they'll be very, very aggressive with Kenny and trying to get a restructure. I'm talking about very team-friendly restructure, like Aaron Jones team-friendly type restructure, right? That's probably the route they'll go there. And then the following year, 27.1 million is a cap hit, only 7.1. So you could free up 20 million in 2027 moving on from him. So there's a decent chance this is Kenny's last year in Green Bay, but next year I could also see him taking a lot less money with a little more guaranteed money, not like your traditional restructure where it's great for both sides. It would have to be better for the Packers. So Goody did kind of set this up to go, hey, in 2026, we can move on if we need to. That's why you see that potential out right here that's listed. They try to kind of earmark, okay, here's the years where you can start to get out of the contract. So anything you guys want to add to that? Because I agree with what Chris said. It is some dead weight. There's no doubt about that, man.
Yeah, Kenny's probably at the top of my list of guys that have gotten paid that just aren't performing. I mean, his decline is, I don't know. I hate to say decline, but I don't think he ever really. We wanted him to be considered a top 3 D lineman at some point in his career, but he just wasn't. I mean, you watched, even as much as I hate the Chiefs, you watch like Chris Jones. He's a difference maker. When he's on the field, you have to watch where he is, which is crazy for being an interior D lineman. At one point, they had him on the D end. At some point, they had him. I saw him almost like in a, what do you call that? Like a spy touch. Like they were. It was just insane. They had to account for every single play.
How many times they tried to chip him with a receiver? The Texans had no answer at all.
Right. And that's the thing is if Kenny he's getting paid like one of those guys, but he does nothing of the sort. Nothing of the sort.
This is the perfect example of what we say. You're willing to overpay for great. You don't overpay for good. Kenny was good at his best. There was one year, and I credit Ryan for bringing this to my attention on his podcast. I was just right with the crowd, wasn't even looking it up. Kenny's great. No, Kenny's good. Kenny's awesome. And he's like, he had one good year. He had one year where it's like he's top 10, right? Top 10 defensive tackle. But you paid him like he's top 3 his whole career once you started to give the contract extension out. So this is the perfect example of you overpaid for good as opposed to great. Now, again, I don't want to come across like this egotistical guy who thinks he knows more than Brian Gutekunst. Please don't take it that way. We're just going off the information we got. Obviously, Goody's seen something that he thought that. Now, back to the touch spy, Jacob. When you think of your most expensive defensive lineman, right, cap hit-wise over the last however many years it's been, and you think of, okay, we're just going to use him in a touch spy, that seems like a big waste. But you got to look at it from the offense's perspective. Why are they choosing to use him as a touch spy? Is because they're allocating a double team to him and a double team to Gary. So I think the way Hafley approached it, I think it's very intelligent. It's why the run defense got better this year, is Coach Hafley said, you know what? If they're going to slide the protection and double Kenny, let's just let him play a little spy, play it safe, play the run a little bit more, and make sure the quarterback doesn't get out of the pocket. And from a casual fan's perspective, like I've been for so long, you watch the tape and go, Kenny ain't doing anything. Kenny ain't doing anything. Well, it's true. He wasn't, off the charts this year. He had a bad year. There's no doubt about it. But the fact that he's occupying that double team, you're going +1 in the hat count game, and you're keeping the quarterback from scrambling and kind of controlling the run a little bit more, which we got way better at playing run defense. I think that was how Hafley's seen that. What else are you going to do? If they're going to allocate a double team and you just tell him to pin his ears back, right? They take him completely out of the game, and now he's fighting, he's rushing to do everything he can to get upfield through a double team, which he most likely will not win that battle, and you're leaving a huge hole there for the running back. I think Hafley played it perfect. I really do. I don't know if that makes sense, but you guys got to take on that.
Go ahead, Rusty Hurts.
We need to change the Rusty Cheeks, by the way. I think Rusty Cheeks.
Rusty Cheeks.
Go ahead.
No, I don't know, man. It just, I've lost kind of faith in Kenny, and I don't know what to do with the D line, because again, I'll go back to Hafley coming in clearly made a difference. I mean, it just It's night and day with so many categories, but for whatever reason, we just couldn't get that offensive line or the defensive line figured out and have them be effective. And I'll just go back again. Like if we're paying the guy, like that's major money. The two guys that we're paying major money to on defense had little to no impact whatsoever on the season. Jair and Kenny, you know what I mean? And you could argue Rashawn, obviously he was a performer and he and he did his job. Right. I knew Dilemma. Well, yeah, but we've been saying that every year. We say something's going to be this. Is why I can't. Clay, didn't we do this year? We did it last year. Kenny looks real slim down. He could rush the passer.
Coach Ogabasi should be the new D-line coach.
You think so?
I'm just going to put that out there right now. Promote that guy.
I'll say this. What Coach Lynn is saying, it's true. A new D-line coach might unlike Kenny, but like what Jacob's saying, we said this with Joe Barry, when Joe Barry came in, right? It's like, okay, because Kenny had his best year under Mike Pettin. You move on, Joe Barry gets in here, and all of a sudden Kenny sucks at football, right? And then what did we say last year? This is what Jacob's point is. Last year it was we're finally going to a true one-gap defense. Man, Kenny's going to dominate. We did our predictions. I finally erased them because I got tired of looking at them because they were absolute trash. But anyway, he guys, we were talking about he's liable to crack 10 sacks this year. He had 1. His pressure rate was 6.6%, right? And again, you got to look at the tape. What was he being asked to do? A lot of touch spine. It was going on. So, again, Coach Lynn, I think he makes a great point. But at the same time, it's like, how many times are we going to say that? You know, this is what – guys, we just talked about it. What is he, 30? How old is he now?
It's going to be 31.
He's 31 this year. Yeah, well, he's 30 this year. He'll be he's going to turn 31 next year. It's over. Like we cannot realistically expect him to improve at this point, right?
What do you think?
Freaks do, but
yeah, sorry. What do you, .com says, so what about Lucas Van Ness? He can't even get on the field over Cox. That pick is looking rough, unfortunately, again. Now, hold on now. I will not tolerate any banter of the rise of Cox, all right?
Here's the thing. Lucas Van Ness, over 11% pressure rate this year.
I thought he turned it on. It's weird, though, that we do
people
not
go,
use him.
Hey, TJ Watt was around 10% this year. Well, he was hurt. Okay, let's make excuses for him and just ignore the fact that Lucas Van Ness, I think, was 3rd or 4th in pressure percentage. Sorry, go ahead, Jake.
No, I mean, that's
Vic.
That's one draft pick where I liked it at the time, and then I got a little bit sour on it. And now I think it's just maybe him finding his niche, but it is an interesting scenario because we don't give him, he's not Max Crosby. He's not going out there and playing 99% of all snaps. He's getting like 40, 50 tops percent of the snaps being played. And I know that's a philosophy that kind of that defense of Hafley, he wants those guys rotating and being fresh. I understand that. But at the same time, you know, I think you have to look at what he's done when he's on the field, and I'm not ready to give up on him yet. That's for sure. Especially if we get if we can get another decent DN / edge, whatever you want to call him now, a really solid guy between Kingsley, Rashawn, Van Ness, my boy Cox. And if we get another stud that's an up and comer, I mean, that in theory on paper, that should be a good, I think it goes back again to the interior defensive line just wasn't performing when we had guys coming off the edge or playing really good DN play. It seemed like we would get just gut punched. You know what I mean? Remember how many times it looked like we had a run stopped for like a 3-yard loss, and they just run right up the middle, and they just scurry around for a 14-yard play, and it's like, man. And a lot of that was Kenny not being able to get off blocks and not making any good in tackles, and it is what it is.
So here is your quarterback pressure percentage for the Packers. Okay, now you got to throw out the Keyshawn Nixon, Xavier McKinney, Eric Wilson, Isaiah McDuffie, Edgerrin Cooper, Quay Walker. Throw those out of the window because obviously those are simulated pressure. They're designed to get pressure. Your pressure rate's going to be through the roof with those guys. Like I don't think anybody's sitting here thinking line Keyshawn Nixon up at defensive end. You know what I'm saying? So we'll just move on from that. But I will say here's where it starts. Okay, and of course our logo is covering it up perfect. Tim, can you drop that logo in the upper right down for me if you don't care, buddy? I'd really appreciate that. That'll probably give us the best view. And we're coming down the stretch here. We're about to wrap up. I just wanted to point out the pressure percentage. So Brenton Cox Jr. led the team at 13.7% pressure rate, okay? He only played 35.9% of the snaps. So you got to keep that in mind. Now, let's address the first question. The viewer said something about he can't even beat Brenton Cox Jr., right? He actually had more snaps. He had 39.3% of the snaps, and Brenton Cox Jr. had 35.9. I've seen people dogging Gary. He doesn't need to come off the field if he's a real superstar. You can't blame Gary for the fact that the coaches love this heavy rotation. We talked about it. The rotation happened more this year than it has in the past. I want to say it was like a 60% snap count for the starters in the past. This year, you could see it dropped a little bit here with 58.4% of the snaps with Rashawn Gary. So, pressure percentage, 13.7% for Brenton Cox Jr. You had 13.4% for Rashawn Gary. Forget Javon Bullard. He's a safety. Next is Lucas Van Ness at 11.2%. Okay. The one that LVN catches a lot of flack for the first round pick that he's just been a bust, right? Why is no one talking about Devontae Wyatt at 9.7%? You know what I'm saying? LVN has been significantly better at applying pressure on the quarterback than Devontae Wyatt on a per snap basis, right? And again, LVN played 39.3% of the snaps, Devontae Wyatt 40.7% of the snaps. So that's apples to apples there, right? It really is. Now, with Devontae Wyatt, well, he's a run defender too. He sucks at run defense. Like, seriously, I don't want to say he sucks. It's not his strength. So I think LVN, and keep in mind, he got more snaps this year than he did last year. They're starting to work him in. He'll be the true edge starter opposite of Rashawn Gary next year. They're getting a new defensive line coach in unless they go the route that Tim's talking about with Ogabasi just promoting him. There's a chance they're bringing in a defensive line coach from the Jets, it sounds like. So they're trying to do something to improve that. I just wanted to point that out that when you look at these players and you go, all right, here's who we put blame on, LVN's not the one for me. He's just not.
Right. What I think is more telling than anything is so you got your pressure percentage of Devontae Wyatt at 9.7, TJ Slayton's at 8.8. And if you look down about 3 or 4 spots, you find Mr. Kenny Clark at 6.8%. I mean, that is unreal. Carl Brooks is just behind him at 6.4. And look at Kenny Clark. He's playing 62% of the snaps. He's one of the highest consistent guys on defense, for sure, on the defensive line. And the guy's bringing in a 6.8%. I mean, he's getting paid top dollar. We got TJ Slayton and Devontae Wyatt that are vastly outperforming him. It's just that can't be. That cannot happen. Right.
And with the whole Kenny thing and TJ Slayton, this is what I was saying. If you can get TJ Slayton for $3 million or less per year, bring that big. I about said a bad word. That big bastard. Bring that big bastard.
You just said it anyways.
Where I'm from, that's a compliment. We say it, hog molly, all that stuff. Like, give me that dude
bastard.
Yeah, bring him back in there. We need it. 8.8.
These parts again, you old bastard.
That's a sound drop right there. That's definitely a drop. So yeah, and he was obviously he's kind of known for his run defense, right? Which he did good. That's the other thing. We're just talking about pressure percentage. What if we go to run stops? Okay, so let's go to stops here. Look who you got at the top here. Let's focus on defensive line. Rashawn Gary, 39 run stops. Okay, I think that's stops, just stops in general. 39. Who's next? Kenny Clark at 28, right? But he played 62% of the snaps. So that's important. TJ Slayton only had 4 less stops than Kenny Clark, and he only played 38.4% of the snaps. So if there was a metric for stops percentage, he would darn near be, he would be doubled Kenny Clark.
Here's the guy.
Same thing with Wyatt. Wyatt's at 40%, has 20. You know what I mean? If he played the same amount, that's Devontae Wyatt, Mr. Pass Rusher Specialist, is outperforming Kenny Clark in the run. I mean, come on.
So it sounds like TJ and Devontae need more snaps.
Bingo. But the problem is Kenny's getting paid all that money, Tim. That's the issue we got, man. You know?
Yeah, well, that sounds like something for the front office guys to figure out.
Not us, right, Tim?
Yeah, what the hell they did. You know, I mean, think about it. Put yourself on that coaching staff. Like, I could give a rat's ass what you're paying these guys. I'm trying to get the best out of what I have to work with. And if that means the guy getting more money, that's, the aging veteran and, whatever the narrative is, I'm looking at some of my younger guys that maybe need some more reps and trying to pepper them in.
Yep. So if we go, let's look at LVN's sacks real quick. You want to? Let's just take a quick gander at this. If we can get it on the screen, large enough. Here we go. Here we go. So you see him wide 9 out here, right? Wide 9. I see someone asked, can he play 3-tech? He probably could, but I'm telling you, man, they want him to set that edge. They want him to be that dude to set the edge on the outside. He's just a monster, right? 3-tech. Here's the way I see it in a 4-3. 3-tech needs to be 280 plus. It really needs to be 290 and very agile, right? Which they're not falling off trees. But think of Carl Brooks, right? Think of Devontae Wyatt. Those are your true 3-techs, which on this play here in particular against the Titans, you see Carl Brooks playing what we would call a 2-eye, right, which is close to a 1-tech. So let's roll the tape, see if they shift. He's actually playing just a 2. Look at LVN on the outside. Relentless, baby. Bang. And again, how does that happen? Watch Rashawn Gary off the left. Rashawn Gary going to flush him, right? There's the pressure from Rashawn Gary. Levis tries to escape. LVN. This is what I like. As LVN's about to murder this quarterback, look at the guy who's supposed to be blocking him. Where did he go? There's one. Let's go to San Francisco here, okay? And this is LVN with the sack. In zone cam. Where's he at on this play? Now you see him. He's lined up. I guess that's Kittle on that side, right? So this is what you would call – some would call it a wide 9. I would call this more of a – like if you go 0, 2, 4, call it a 6 or a 6-eye, right? Because you're right over the tight end. And let's watch him take care of business here. Let's see what happens. Untouched. They tried to pull a guard over, right, or a tackle from the opposite side to block. Relentless strip sack.
I think it's double teamed.
Yeah, triple team. This is the best part, Jacob. Look at this, Tim. You remember this? Watch our boy Christian McCaffrey try to take care of LVN. I wish it was the other camera. Look at Christian McCaffrey. Fake handoff, and he's going to try to block LVN. Let's go.
Is that use check that initially is pulling?
It may have been. He might have been lined up like in a Y. Yeah, it looks like a 44, doesn't it? Yeah. But watch. Just key in on Christian McCaffrey, right? But keep your peripheral on LVN. Do not take your eye off of Christian McCaffrey on this play. LVN throws his ass out of the club. Watch this.
Dude.
But that's the look you're looking for. I want that autographed by Christian McCaffrey. You know what I'm saying? Or autographed by LVN would be awesome. So, again, this talk like LVN is just a horrible football player is not true. It's not true. Let's move on to the final one here. This is against Miami. This was a sack of Tua, and then we'll wrap this thing up. So here he is again, wide 9 look, right, over the left tackle on the left tackle side. Great job containing. You know how easy it would be to try to fight up the field and then Tua escapes right here?
Yep.
Like he thinks he's got this huge lane right here, right? Great job.
That's what we talk about, getting off a block too. You know, that's kind of something that we gloss over a lot of times. Once you engage with that lineman, are you able to get off? And that's a great example of LVN getting off a block and making a play.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy too is if you look at that lineup, you know what's missing there? Edgerrin Cooper. If you watch a lot of the early year highlights, there's no Cooper on the field, which makes you think, like, what happens if that dude in this defense, if we even improve slightly, even if that's the bare minimum, if we just slightly improve in certain areas, I still cannot wait for that guy to be on the field for 90+% of the snaps, because he's a straight up difference maker.
Right. So if you were to say LVN was going to play 90% of the snaps, you would triple his numbers is what you would do, right? That's basically what because he's, 30, probably a little less than triple. So if he finished with 3 sacks and he had a pressure percentage of 11.3%, which is third best on the team amongst the defensive linemen, he would have finished the season, 8 sacks? If LVN had 8 sacks this year, the view on him would be totally different, right? Fans would be like, hey, man, we got, you can't help the fact that he played less snaps. That's how they rotate. That's how they do that in Green Bay, right? They want to keep those fresh legs. So kind of is what it is. I'm not saying LVN is a top 10 edge defender. I'm not saying that. I'm simply saying if you took every defensive lineman in the league, right, and you said, okay, on the field at all times, you've typically got 4 defensive linemen because people are in nickel most of the time. So you've got 2 defensive tackles and 2 defensive ends, and you looked at, or 2 edge defenders. If you looked at the numbers there, he finished 62nd, I believe is where he finished, which means out of 120 that you would consider starting caliber, he's in the top half, essentially. So I think next year, I'm not going to be surprised if we look up next year and LVN's pressure percentage is over 10% again, which is kind of that line where you go, that's an effective pass rusher. If he finishes 13, 14% next year, you're going to see him with 7 or 8 sacks, and he's going to be a consistent contributor to this defense. I believe that, man. So let's finish up in the chat real quick. Coach Lynn, Lloyd is not as smooth as Gibbs, but he can have an effect in our run game next year if we use him right. I know Matt LaFleur loved Lloyd. There's no doubt. Fred McFarley, what do you have written on that whiteboard, Rusty? Is that your schedule over at the Oval Office, or Rusty?
No, he's sketching out, ass tattoo designs, basically. He recently lost a bet, so.
That's unfortunately true.
Oh, man. I love it, man. Hey, listen, the grease boards, people make fun of me all the time for it. You guys remember when I started doing the podcast, this was all one big grease board? I need it. That's what these are. I've replaced them with like 3 different mini grease boards. Right? Gotta have it, man. Gotta have it. And then Coach Lynn says Green Bay did not peak at the right time. We looked like contenders at times this year. That's a great point. You know what that sounds like, Coach? And people hate to hear it. That sounds like the youngest team in the league. What that sounds like. So add some veteran leadership this offseason. That doesn't mean you waste money, but you got to add some veterans.
Did y'all see there was a graphic? I can't remember who it was, maybe Fox Sports or somebody put it out, but it simply stated the youngest teams every year since like the maybe early 2000s. And every single one of them was losing record, horrible record, losing record. And then it was the Packers in 2023 and 2024, both winning records. And like you cannot deny that. There is obviously, it's easy to say we're the youngest team. That's why this and this didn't go right. It's an actual legitimate kind of asterisk that needs to go by this. And going in, I love, honestly, I like being one of the younger teams, if not the youngest team. It's a double-edged sword though. And you have to understand that there are going to be some disadvantages for that. And we saw it. We saw it very clearly this year in certain areas. So that should give us hope. Maturing.
As the youngest team in the league, you want to show you can compete. And then once you get to the point where you're competing, now put the pieces in place, right? That's kind of where we're at. I hope they do that. I hope they do that this year. I think it's going to be great. And what Jacob's talking about, I think it was over the last 20 years, it was at least the last 15 years, right?
Yeah.
We're the only team in NFL history to have the youngest roster and have a winning record, and we've done it twice now. So there you go. Tim, you got any parting thoughts, man? We'll get way over. We'll get out of here real quick.
Yeah, Edrin Cooper's a future Hall of Famer.
I believe
that's all I got to say.
Yeah, that's perfect. Fred McFarley says Cooper got a second-team All-Pro vote, playing basically 3/5 of the year, if that, maybe 2/5 of the year.
Yeah,
that's
he's
crazy.
Dog. Absolute dog. My guy right there. He's a madman.
And that's the great example because it was disheartening at camp last year to see Cooper just standing on the sidelines talking to Quay and not being able to be out there. And he missed so much time early in that rookie season. And then to see him come on late and just look like a dude who's been playing in the NFL for 10 years is just insane to me. So there is no ceiling whatsoever with Edrin Cooper. It's just how high is this guy going to go?
Yeah. Donovan Schilling, he really should be rookie defensive player of the year. We'll see, man. That would be awesome if he won that, right? So, all right. That's it, guys. We're out. Went over a little bit. Appreciate everybody hanging out. Hit that like button for us before you leave. We will we'll be back tonight, I believe. As of right now, I'll be back tonight. I got to double check. But the only night we're going to take off is Monday night so we can watch the national championship. So
watch them Irish take care of business.
That's right. Fred McFarley says, thanks, Clayton, Tim, and Rusty. Enjoy the games today. There you go. All right. Appreciate everybody. Have a wonderful day. We will see you tonight, most likely. If not, just keep your eye peeled here on the channel. You'll see. I'll try to schedule it as soon as we make a decision. Hit that like button like Donovan says. Don't be a fan. All right. Shave your top lip and hit the like button. We're out of here. See you.
And we go. We out. Bye, guys.